Sairam, and welcome to the 8th episode in our serial presentation of the message of our Lord Sai, the Avatar of the Kali age. We spent a lot of time in the last episode discussing the omnipresence of God and why it is so important not to lose the sight of this omnipresence even for a moment. Today we shall begin by stressing that no matter how much we may think of ourselves in terms of position, power and so on, in reality, we are a tiny cog in this complex machinery called the cosmos.
Most people do not bother about this aspect of our existence. But a long time ago, when Swami came as Lord Sri Krishna, he did make some serious observations concerning this in the Gita. This is what he said then.
Sahayagnaha prajaha shruštva Purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadhvam eshavostvishta-kamadhuk devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha परस्परं भावयन्तः श्रेयः परमवाप्स्यथ इष्टान् भोगान् हि वो देवा दास्यन्ते यज्ञभाविताः तैर्दत्तान्न प्रदायेभ्यो यो भुङ्क्ते स्तेनैव सः यज्ञशिष्टाशिनः सन्तो मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषैः भुञ्जते ते त्वघं पापा ये पचन्त्यात्मकारणात् अन्नाद् भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्यात् अन्नसम्भवः यज्ञाद् भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञः कर्म समुद्भवः कर्म ब्रह्मोद्भवं विद्धि ब्रह्माक्षर समुद्भवम् तस्मात् सर्वगतं ब्रह्म नित्यं यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम् एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयति हयः अघायुरिन्द्रियारामो मोघं पार्थ सजीवति.
These shlokas or hymns occur in the 3rd chapter of the Gita. In simple language, what these shlokas convey is the following. There is a cosmic linkage across the board with everything being connected to everything else. In this cosmic chain, every single entity has a role to play. And in some sense or the other, the action of the entity concerned involves helping and supporting the other entities. It is rather like complex machinery involving a large number of gears interconnected in such a manner that every gear has to play a role. And if even an isolated gear malfunctions, it could affect the entire machinery.
In other words, no entity can excuse itself and drop out of this cosmic chain. It so happens that all entities except the humans do not have the option of dropping out. Only we humans can actually go against the role that God has intended us to play because of the mind. And what Krishna is doing in the hymns quoted is to remind us that it is wrong, immoral, and highly irresponsible of us to go against what the Supreme One wants us to.
Baba gives all this deeper meaning with the following additional comment.
Vesti leka samasti chikkadu. Without Vyashti, the individual, you cannot think of Samashti, the community.
సమష్టి లేక సృష్టియే జరగదు.
Without Samashti community, there cannot be Srushti, creation.
కనుకనే మొట్టమొదట వ్యష్టిని మనం గుర్తించాలి.
So we have to recognize the role of individual, Vyashti.
ఈ వ్యష్టి ద్వారానే సమష్టిని మనము గుర్తించడానికి వీలవుతుంది.
Through realization of the nature of the Vyashti individual, you can know the society, Samishti.
ఈ సమష్టి వల్లనే సృష్టి మనకు అర్థమవుతుంది.
Through the comprehension of the Samishti society, you can understand Srushti, the creation.
సృష్టిని అర్థం చేసుకున్నటువంటి వాడే పరమేష్టి.
The one who understands the Srushti creation is Parameshti, divine himself.
కనుక సృష్టి, సమష్టి, వ్యష్టి, పరమేష్టి ఈ నాలుగింటి యొక్క తత్వము వ్యష్టి యందు ఇమిడి ఉంటున్నది.
And hence Srushti, creation, Samishti, society, Vyashti, the individual, Parameshti, the divinity, are all present within the Vyashti, the individual.
కనుక మొట్టమొదట మనము వ్యష్టి అనేటువంటి తత్వాన్ని చక్కగా అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి.
To begin with, we have to understand the individual, Vyashti.
Swami says, the individual is a limb of society, or if you prefer, humanity as a whole. Next, humanity is a limb of nature. Finally, nature itself is a limb of God. Thus we have a hierarchy which goes as follows. Right at the bottom is the individual or Vyashti. This individual or Vyashti is a part of society or Samashti. Society or Samashti is itself a part of creation or Srishti. And finally we have the fact that creation or Srishti is a part of God or Parameshti. So there it is, the cosmic hierarchy with God at the top, nature coming next, humanity coming one step below, and us individual humans coming right at the bottom. Does that mean we are mere lowly creatures of no consequence at all? Far from it, for if we were, would God have gifted us such a wonderful body with so many capabilities and added to it a brain and a mind that is so powerful? Does not Swami repeatedly declare, Jantunam narajanmam durlabham, meaning that birth without human form is a priceless blessing. Thus, what the hierarchy we have been discussing means is that we must be extremely careful and most responsible in using the immense treasure of power and love that God has put within each of us. Swami goes further to explain precisely what he wants from us humans. He says, make absolutely sure that whatever you do does not in any manner cause the slightest harm to society or humanity, nor should it disturb nature in the least. Sounds simple, but unfortunately it is the simple lessons of life that all of us tend to forget very easily. Let us therefore take a closer look at this important teaching of Swami and see how we so easily violate it. Take a simple thing like throwing litter, which is quite common in many places. At times, excessive garbage can lead to disastrous consequences, one example being the Surat plague. Surat is a town on the west coast of India, about 100 or so kilometers to the north of the great metro Mumbai, formerly known as Bombay. In 1994, for 2 months, there were heavy monsoon rains and the town's drainage system simply could not handle the deluge. Many animals drowned, and that included goats, sheep and cattle, not to mention hundreds of stray dogs and cats. With all the carcasses floating around in the already piled up garbage that no one bothered to clean up, there was trouble for sure. Plague broke out on 22nd September, which was when people woke up to the fact that a city cannot but face trouble if it is not kept clean and its drainage system is in order. Surat is well known internationally for its diamond cutting and diamond trade. There is a lot of money floating around there. and yet no one bothered to spend any money or time on essentials. So here is a case where individual preoccupation with making money and leaving the city dirty and filthy finally made the whole city pay for it in a big way via a big disaster. The Surat disaster is an example of how we can invite trouble by being careless and creating pollution. It is not only cities, but nature itself that can be polluted in many ways. Indeed, this is being done in huge measure and in many places. Two factors drive all this pollution and ravaging of Mother Nature. The first is greed and self-interest, and the second is the fact that we have forgotten that God has pervaded the universe as Mother Nature. Man digs the earth and finds gold. He does not pay nature 1 cent, but sells the gold and makes huge profits. Man gets oil from the ground in huge quantities, sells it and makes huge profits. But does he bother to spend even 1 second to thank Mother Nature for the bounty given absolutely free? Hardly.
The rig is located 52 miles off the Louisiana coast. The blast was reported at 10 o'clock local time last night.
Continuing coverage of the disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, and we have all feared and expected that we're going to see the kinds of pictures that we now have. We'd hoped we wouldn't, certainly.
In even worse shape, totally immersed in thick oil, still blinking its eyes, but really unable to move out of that gunk.
Man grows food in abundance and even profits from it. In the process, he is even ready to ruin the land that gave him the bounty. This has happened, as for example, when the famous Dust Bowl was created in America in the early part of the 20th century. All this happens because we constantly forget that God is everywhere.
Swami has gone one step further and drawn our attention to an obvious truth which few of us ever bother about. Just think about it. If God is present in each and every one of us, then clearly He must be present in a macro way in the society as well, right? But how many of us think of it that way? Swami has in fact reminded us that the Vedas declared this truth a long, long time ago.
Om Sahasrashirusha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapad.
Many chant the Vedas, but that alone is not enough. One must go far beyond and understand what the Vedas say and act according to those teachings. Swami helps us to do that, which is why his message is so important. The chants you just heard were the first few lines of the famous Vedic hymn Purusha Suktam. As Swami says, if one were to literally translate the hymn, it would mean that God has thousands of eyes, thousands of legs, and so forth. Baba says that, however, is not the correct interpretation. What the hymn is actually telling us is that society is God. The thousands of eyes and legs referred to in the Vedic chant really refer to different people. Swami says that the collection of hands, legs and eyes is a symbolic way of referring to society. Baba also adds that if the Vedic chant were to be composed today, the sages would talk of billions instead of thousands, since the population today is much larger. You might argue, it is okay to say that society is God. Maybe it is true. But what am I supposed to do? How does that affect me? If you want to know the answer to that question, then take a look at this picture. See this person who is speaking on a cell phone while driving a scooter at the same time? Now, this person can easily get into an accident and hurt not only himself but also others on the road. Now tell me, is not this person a nuisance to society? Here is another example. The truck you see is belching pollution. It has no business to, and yet it is. Clearly, the smoke is harming others. When trucks stop at a traffic light, they usually have the engine on, puffing out a lot of smoke. As a result, the drivers of two-wheelers who are waiting behind have to inhale smoke till the red light turns green. These are common garden examples of how neglect and indifference lead to problems in society. There are plenty more, some of them quite serious. Some time ago, there was a massive earthquake in China during which hundreds of school children died. These buildings collapsed because the builders cheated during construction. In other words, they resorted to substandard construction in order to make big profits. But sadly, that profit was responsible for the death of many children. People frequently behave in an irresponsible manner because lately they have forgotten about the intricate and very important relationship between the micro and the macro. I can give many more such examples, but I think there is no need for that, since I'm sure you have got the point. The bottom line is that the God who is in us is also in all other beings. As a result, we must look upon society as verily the macro form of God. That is why we must never hurt society. Extending the argument from other human beings to various entities in nature, we must realize that since God is immanent in every bit of creation, we must never do anything to spoil or hurt nature. You know, everything God has put in nature has a purpose. If you do not believe me, just consider the ant. Try and find out how ants play a very useful and critical role in the ecosystem. When you find out, I am sure you would be astonished how careful God has been in putting so many different species in nature. We might not know what precisely is the role they play, but believe me, every atom, every molecule, every bit in God's universe has a useful role to play. When God has done so much for our benefit, don't you think we could at least thank God by taking care of these creations of God? Think about it. That's all for now, and do join us again tomorrow for the next episode in this continuing series entitled The Message of the Lord. All the best till we get together again. Jai Sai Ram.